Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale. I guess you are able to get some fuel into your generator or even some diesel. If you're not, maybe you're watching on your mobile device. Well, the House of Representatives, they've returned and they are asking the minister to come and explain why we're having the fuel scarcity. But some good news for those of you who have been working hard in the past days. Tomorrow is Workers' Day and is a bank holiday. The federal government today declared Wednesday, the 1st of May, 2024, as a public holiday to mark this year's Workers' Day. Nigeria's Minister of Interior, Mr. Olubumitunjojo, made the declaration and was captured in a statement from the desk of the ministry's permanent secretary, Mr. Aishetu Ndayako. Interesting scenario played out today on the floor of the Red Chambers. Well, there was some heated arguments and some outbursts. This time, not the social media type we're seeing between Afrobeat musicians Davido and Wizkid. Has been past days of rants between both guys, but it was in the Senate chamber. The federal lawmakers today resumed back to work after 6 weeks of recess, but their resumption was at the newly renovated Alo chamber, which was opened after over 2 years since the reconstruction work began. Shortly after the regular announcements by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, a heated argument ensued between some ranking members over seating arrangement. 3 senators engaged in a heated argument. Senator Danjuma Goje, who is a 4-time ranking senator representing Gombe Central, and Sahabi Yahu, senator representing Zamfara North, expressed displeasure over the back seat assigned to them and complained to the majority leader, Senator Okoyemi Bamdele. According to the standing rules of the upper legislative chamber, senators sit according to ranking, but the arrangement according to the agreed senators fell short of their expectations. After the argument, Senator Kawu Samaila, representing Kano South, called for a point of order, but was ignored.
To arrange the police.
In a situation where it's only a case of first amongst equal, or where there is equality across the lines, where there is also issues of seniority and the case of those who have experience or those who have been there before, and this is what is playing out. I hope that they will be able to resolve that in the coming days. Well, the House of Representatives on their own has asked the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. Ainekin Lokobri, to come before it to explain the reasons behind the queues at a filling station across the country and the scarcity of petrol in many parts of the country. The House passed a resolution to invite the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Ainekin Lokobri, and his counterpart in the gas sector, over the fuel scarcity being experienced in the country. The Green Chamber also summoned the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, over petrol shortages in the country. This followed a motion of urgent national importance by a member of the House, Umar Ajilo, raising concerns over lingering queues at petrol stations nationwide. The House expects the ministers and the NNPCL boss to explain the true reason for the scarcity and the measures put in place to bring it to an end. No date has been set for that engagement. Well, tonight, our attention will be on Ondo State, and reasons are not far-fetched. Of course, you know what is happening. Elections are coming in Ondo State and Edo State. They are hoping to be able to get new governors, yes, albeit whatever the circumstance surrounding those elections. And of course, we'll be speaking with one of the front runners. And of course, again, on the other half of the program, we'll be speaking with those who believe that 2023 election falls short of the standard of election we should be having in the country. But what are the lessons that we have learned as a people in that election? They're asking President Tinubu to ensure what they refer to as electoral reforms in the country. But can the president do that, or will he do that? We'll be discussing all of that. So get around, everyone. Let's get talking on this one. But first, before we get talking with our first guest on the program tonight, let's check some of your political roundup stories.
Governor of Bayelsa State, Senator Doye Dire, has sworn in 14 commissioners into the State Executive Council. These are the first set of commissioners sworn in by the governor since the commencement of his second term in office. The swearing-in ceremony took place at the Exco chambers of the Bayelsa State Government House. And ahead of the November governorship election in Ondo State, the People's Democratic Party has declared its intention to unseat the All Progressives Congress, the incumbent party in the state. Bayelsa State Deputy Governor Mr. Lawrence Egujakpo, who served as a returning officer for the PDP Ondo State primaries, asked members to do everything within their powers to ensure victory at the polls for the party and its candidate Mr. Agboola.
You have a daunting task before you. Don't see that most of your co-contestants have conceded to you. You need to do much to also bring them on board to come and complete this exercise.
Persons with disabilities in Nigeria are asking President Bola Tinubu to extend his renewed hope agenda to the community of persons with disabilities by appointing one of their own as the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Speaking in Abuja shortly after passing a vote of confidence on the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, the Senior Special Assistant to President Bola Tinubu on Special Needs and Equal Opportunities, Mr. Abba Issa, says the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs will be better managed by a person with disabilities who will be more compassionate to the plight of Nigerians.
The Ministry of Humanitarian is a ministry of persons with disability. Most of the activities that they are doing, 90% is for persons with disability.
There you have it. You're being up to speed with some of your political roundup stories. Let's tell you that the governors of the northern region of the country today converged on Kaduna for a crucial meeting. The Northern Governors Forum resolved to explore state policing models that are built on the foundation of cooperation and collaboration amongst the 19 states in the region. The chairman of the forum and the governor of Gombe State, Inuwa Yaya, made the position known at the opening session of the Northern Governors meeting, where he reaffirmed the willingness of the Northern Governors to work with the federal government in order to provide lasting solutions to the security challenges bedeviling the region. Of course, the host governor, Senator Ubatani, also spoke. Take a listen to what they agreed to work on.
Today's meeting, dear colleagues, afford us an opportunity to look at our successes and challenges so far in the war against terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and fashion new strategies for a final push against these enemies of development. It is for this reason, dear colleagues, that I wish to reiterate my earlier call for Northern State to develop a common strategy and operational plan to tackle insecurity. Let us establish a command and control center to coordinate our joint efforts.
As the nation continues to deliberate on the issue of state police, it is important that we begin to explore state policing models that are built on the foundation of cooperation and collaboration amongst our northern states. Economic development is paramount to our region's security and prosperity. We consider economic development as a long-term solution to our security challenges.
Well, yeah, you heard those governors there. Let's get talking now. We keep our eyes on the Ondo and Edo governorship elections, and the reasons are just because already we are knowing those who will fly the flags of the different political parties. Tonight, we're going to be speaking with one of the front runners in the race, this time in Ondo State. The Ondo State PDP governorship candidate is here to delve into the intricacies of the post-primary issues, the manifesto highlights, and the essence of victory. As the political landscape of Ondo State undergoes significant shifts, it's imperative to gain insight from those at the forefront. Today, we understand that he got a certificate of return. So let's get talking. I'm being joined A former deputy governor of Ondo State and the PDP governorship candidate in Ondo, Mr. Agboola, who joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shu.
And congratulations on your victory in getting the ticket of your party.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's some relief for you, isn't it? There is no... your major opponent, or the man who defeated you the last time, is not on the plate this time around. So you got a ticket.
Yeah, yes, that's politics. And at least I've got the ticket now. He is not contesting.
But he had interest in contesting. What happened? Did he pull out at the last minute?
That's his own personal decision. It's a constitutional right. He felt that probably maybe because of the conventional arrangement in those states, just okay, let me allow.
And what's his arrangement?
The conventional arrangement on those states that when it comes to the turn of the South, nobody comes south. Come to the North, at least as it is now. The late governor from Ondo North, he has spent, ordinarily supposed to spend 8 years, so we want to believe that still their tenure. Former governor Olu Sagumiko spent 8 years from the central, so it's the turn of the South to produce the next governor from Ondo State. That's the conventional arrangement that we enjoy in Ondo State.
So you think it's the turn of the South?
Oh, yeah. If you look at the two political parties, all of us are from the South. All of us.
The two
major parties, PDP is from the South, APC also from the South. So that's an arrangement that's already there.
So it's an unwritten arrangement and convention that everybody seems to fall in line with.
Both Obas, traditional rulers, everybody are already in line with that conventional arrangements and give us peace. Give us peace.
I mean, you were, I'm not sure a lot of people remember that you were the deputy to the late governor Akeredolu.
You think so?
Some people I mean, it's 4 years now since you left office, isn't it?
It's not up to. I left office in 2021, February 24th precisely. And this is 2023.
Reminiscing on working with late Akeredolu, what was it like?
Well, it wasn't a bad thing, actually. I worked with him as a deputy governor. We worked together. At a time, we also disagree. But Akeredolu, I want to tell you, he was a nice man. He's not alive today, so I don't want to really discuss about him. We should allow the man to go and rest.
But I'm looking at the fact that your time in the APC and being a deputy governor, would you say you really served the people of Ondo State to the best of your ability and to the dictate of the Constitution? Was it to the point that you think that you could serve?
Well, to the best of my ability, and the masses also can testify. I did my best when I was a deputy governor, and these are also part of the credentials that can still make into say, I want to come out to conduct of anything on those states. So people know that I have the capacity. Agboola is household name in Ondo State. That cannot be erased. So I did my best, and I think I put in my best at that time as a service to the nation, to my state. I'll move on.
But if there was one thing that you probably could have done differently, what would that be?
Well, politics is a dynamic game. If you say anything I would have done differently, how do you mention that? Like I said, I did my best. I did what I could do as a deputy governor.
Did you get a chance to serve to the utmost?
Of course I did. It might not be as exactly what I thought I should deliver because of that office as a deputy governor. Maybe that's the reason why I said, okay, I want to be the governor, so that people can also know what I can offer.
It was a limiting office?
Oh, to some extent, by the Constitution. And I think the National Assembly should do something about that, spell it out and define the constitutional role for office of a deputy governor and a vice presidential office.
It allows the person occupying that office to be laid back because you are only deputizing when the principal is not around or whatever the principal or how far your principal can allow you go.
That's the office. You can only function and distant of your principal. And he assigns roles to you. And if you feel like he doesn't want to play with you, fine. But I think you should ordinarily amend that aspect and give them a constitutional role to make them more relevant. Because it's a joint ticket. It's a joint ticket. If I'm governor of Ondo State, I'm going to do a different thing. Keep my deputy governor busy. Let him also offer. Let people see him as part of the government. So I'm not surprised. Everywhere, crisis here and there, and we must address that issue.
But if you become the governor of Ondo State, you will do different with your deputy.
Of course I will.
You allow your deputy to have a free role.
It doesn't take anything away. Rather, it reduces my tension. I was the deputy governor, so I understand the trip. I understand the office very well.
You will not be afraid of political usurpation of your power?
No. How? A governor of a state? Let me tell you, Sheung, I've also served a deputy governor before when I was council chairman for 4 years. So I can understand the office is an office that if the governor wants you to perform, it will reduce the tension on him. Everybody will have access to him, to the deputy governor. You cannot be seeing the governor at all time. So it's an office that if I'm governor, I will strengthen that office and make it very, very effective.
But how would you react to those who think that Agboola Ajayi was disloyal when you were deputy governor?
Well, I don't want to go to that level. That's their personal opinion, but I think at the end of the day, people felt, this guy was vindicated, we never knew it was like this, it was like that. But like I said, I don't want to discuss my late boss. He has gone, and we should allow him to rest.
You have APC blood running through your veins, because APC will look at you and they will think, that's our product there. They will think that they borrowed you to the PDP. That's what they will think. APC will think that they made you popular by making you deputy governor. So in some sense, do you see think that you have some links and some alliances in the APC that makes you think maybe your second home is the APC?
Maybe you don't know my background, so let me just tell you. I was a former world chairman. I started politics at a very tender age. Let me just tell you my background. And later, I became a secretary of a ward. Later, I became supervisory councillor twice. I became a chairman care committee in my local government, the local government. Later, I was elected as a council chair for another 3 years. I was elected to the House of Rep, 2007, 2011, and I became a deputy governor. So it's not as if I just woke up and said, I'm a deputy governor. I have a track record. And as a matter of fact, with due respect to leaders and political officers in Ondo State, I've never seen somebody who must have gotten through all the stages and beat my credentials in Ondo State politics. The two of us are former deputy governors, but I can tell you, we know each other.
Yeah, so it still comes back to what I've said. In all of those things that you have done, ward, ed, and all what have you, you're coming to prominence at the national level, and even at the state level, at that level was because you became a deputy governor.
Every politics is local. Let me tell you, even when I'm relevant at the national level now, I'm not contested to be president of Nigeria. I want to be governor of Ondo State, so I am much relevant. I'm interested in governor of Ondo State. So it implies that people in that state should see me as a fox.
Have you had some kind of conversation with Mr. Eyitayo Jegede?
Oh, yeah, we are talking. I was with him a few days ago. We talk every day. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to attend my program today, but he also said I had 1 or 2 programs in Lagos. So we are talking. We're a member of the same political party.
He's seen as perhaps the leader of your party in the state at the moment.
No, he's one of the leaders of PDP in Ondo State.
Who is the leader of the PDP in Ondo State at the moment?
If you look at the hierarchy, we have a former governor there, we have a former deputy governor there.
That's Olusegun Mimiko.
Of course, he's there. He's a member of PDP, and nobody is contesting that with him. But I can also say that Eyitayo Jegede is one of very prominent leader of PDP in Ondo State.
Did Olusegun Mimiko sponsor you?
No, he's a leader. All of us are his boys.
I'm saying, were you his candidate? That's it.
He doesn't have a candidate. All of us are all of us are together.
Were you at the NWC meeting, which held sometimes in February or March?
No, I was there. I was there.
Yeah, but you know that he rooted for a candidate at that meeting.
No, that's a blackmail. He never done that. He never. I was still with him a few days before the election, and he told me everybody should go and slug it out. At the initial stage, as a leader, he tried to intervene and say, maybe we could have a consensus arrangement to avoid spending of money here and there. But you agree that when a contest is involved and the ambition, everybody say no, they want to exercise their franchise, constitutional right. So it's okay, no problem. You guys can try your best and see who will get the ticket. And eventually got it. So he never, I said this, he never supported any one of us. As a matter of fact, it was not even a delegate at all. So it wouldn't.
So let's look at it. Your party seems to be having some issues at the national level. I see some ways that your party is still trying to get itself together at the state level. But let's look at the fact that there are those who are aggrieved from the primaries. Have you been able to speak to them?
In PDP Ondo State?
In the PDP in Ondo State.
Ondo State?
Yes.
No, maybe I should just let you know, this is the first time PDP will conduct an election and there was no single petition, not even a paid petition. All of us agree because the system was transparent. And let me give that kudos to the Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State, who was the chairman of the Electoral panel. He has been able to show the whole world. As a matter of fact, I'm sure APC will know that internal democracy is really strengthening, and PDP is enjoying that. So it's a transparent system. Nobody could even say anything.
It's going to be a battle largely of former deputy governors.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Mr. Lucky Ayedatiwa,
yes,
a former deputy governor. Agboola of the PDP, a former deputy governor. As much as we know, these are two political parties that are in the lead, in the race, in the state at the moment. Are you weary of the power of incumbency?
Wow. Governor Lucky Ayedatiwa is a friend. As a matter of fact, on the day of primary election, after they have declared me, he called me. Unfortunately, I missed his call. He sent a text to me. I also replied him. When he became governor, I also called him, related him. So we are friends. It doesn't really matter. But
when you get into the battlefield, friendship will be on one side, and you will slug it out.
That does not mean that we're not friends. We are still friends. He is a product of APC, PDP. So everybody will go to the pool. The masses will say, okay, the two of them are former deputy governors. They will now say, who has the capacity to deliver?
Who has the capacity?
Of course, I've just been able to list out my position in the past, what I've heard in the past.
Those are political positions. Doesn't mean the capacity to govern.
Capacity and experience and character. These are legitimate weapons that you put together to make a leader. And I have everything it takes to be governor of those states.
So you are not worried about
not at all.
Lucky Ayedatiwa, who is the sitting governor?
It doesn't really matter. We have defeated many governors in the past. It doesn't really matter. The people who will judge who will be supposed to be the governor. They will look at all. And let me tell you, anybody who's going to emerge in this contest is going to be the only PDP that will vote for the person. If I'm going to win the election, of course I'm going to win. A lot of people will also vote for me. A lot of APC will vote for because they are interested who's going to be their governor. And the masses are watching. They are there. What would they want to say that makes them want to vote for APC? Are you talking about the high cost of living? Is it decay in infrastructure? Are you talking about insecurity? Others are kidnapped every day. Is that what they want us to continue?
That was the government you were part of.
It doesn't really matter. I'm talking of
it. Doesn't matter that you were part of that government.
You see, let me tell you, when I was a deputy governor, like I said, I did my best. I was part of those who actually introduced Amateku. It wasn't as worse as this. But it's not not crying like this everywhere. Everybody, the little I could do, I did, and I offered advice. Of course, remember that I was not the governor.
Let's take a breather, and when we come back, our conversation with Mr. Agboola, the governorship candidate of the PDP in Ondo State, continues after now. Join us again, everyone. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's get back to that conversation with Mr. Agboola. He's a PDP governorship candidate in Ondo State. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
So you were talking about your capacity. So the question would be, what is that capacity? Because being in a political party or being in political offices does not necessarily or do not necessarily give you what it takes to be able to govern a state. And if I may ask, what do you think is that most important or fundamental tool that you need to govern Ondo State?
Well, like I said, I've served in various capacities. I've served at the legislative, I've served at the executive, both at the local government and at the state level. So I understand clearly how to run Ondo State, how to make the system work in Ondo State. That is the driving force. I want to make a difference.
What kind of difference are you talking about?
To keep everybody busy and also change the narrative in Ondo State. It's as bad as it is today. If salaries are not paid in Ondo State, nothing goes on. We must be able to change the narrative and turn Ondo State to economically viable states.
How do you hope to do that?
It's very simple. I'm from Riverine. All what we just need to do is to link the sea. Construct massive infrastructure that will link the sea, and once you get it, my brother, maybe in the first 2-3 years, it might be difficult for you to actually achieve that. But after 4 years, I can conveniently tell you that I can run on Ondo State without collecting federal government allocation. What Lagos State are doing now, they don't wait for government allocation. What Lagos State are enjoying is not 1/4 of what we have in Ondo State that's untapped. There is a popular saying in Lagos that Tojo Bacha Ingbeti, or Joe Kinti. I'm sure you understand what you mean. Do you know what that's called? That Ingbeti. Do you know the Ingbeti? Do you know it?
Of course, our viewers also know.
So the Ingbeti is the sea, the coastal belt. And what we have in Ondo State is far, far, far longer, deeper than what Lagos State had just enjoyed.
And the riverine areas of Ondo State is in a bad shape.
It's not just in a bad shape, it's untapped. Nobody's there.
No, I'm talking about infrastructure.
No life.
I'm talking about the infrastructure.
That's what I'm saying.
So you are saying you want to link
massive
the riverine areas to the sea.
Oh, that's what we need in Ondo
So
State.
in terms of transportation or in terms of marine exploitation or what exactly?
Exactly in terms of commerce, marine commerce, entertainment, business and everything. You see, I granted an interview about 2 months ago, and I said, if I'm going to Ondo State, I'm going to link the sea with the rain. From our place to link Itakpe in Kogi State. That would be the closest trade system to the north and to the far east.
What kind of trade do you think will be going on?
Oh, it's a vessel and a commercial rain that will be carrying heavy loads, so that it will reduce the literal of these trailers on our road, destroying roads every day. As a matter of fact, the economic activity will also be there. We make money and government will be doing very well.
But Mr. Ajayi, do you realize the powers of the state in what you say you want to do?
What's the power? Is it
in the purview of the state to be able to walk across the sea?
Is it not my state? Don't I have a territorial boundary? So you now prohibit me from constructing roads and better life on people? I don't understand.
But you know the laws regarding the powers over the sea.
Construction of roads.
You are talking about linkage of sea.
Yes.
You are talking about
what I said is to provide massive infrastructure.
It's in the exclusive rights of the federal
to construct a road that will link the sea.
You think you have the powers as a state?
Why can't I? Let me tell you, before the late governor Agago died, he was already doing that. He almost achieved that. It doesn't take more than to achieve that more than maybe another 30 kilometers will have achieved it. And I'm going to do that if I'm going to Ondo State. Once you open up that place, you open up Ondo State for economic activities.
The people of Elijah who are watching right now, the people of Ondo who are watching right now, they will be saying that we don't even have good roads.
That's what I'm saying.
The
first thing is to massive infrastructure, road construction that will link this area.
Give us an understanding of just how much you think that will cost and how much it will make every month for Ondo State, if you do that.
Well, let me tell you, sir. How much we make in Ondo State, I can't even quantify it.
But because if you are a private sector person,
I'm just telling you that
if you are collecting money from investors, they will ask you how much do you need to prosecute a project and how much you are hoping to plow back. So if I'm asking right now, it does look like you probably have done some homework in thinking that you want to open up.
Yeah.
So what are the figures that you are looking at? How much will it take to open it up? How much will it be bringing back as benefit and profit to the state?
Well, the first thing, like I said, is to make life better and meaningful for my people in the Riverine. I'm from Riverine too. And I should be stupid to be a governor and I don't open that place for economic activities.
What kind of trade or economic activities do you hope
The first thing is, first of all, open the road. Once you open the road, investors will come and bring in their money.
What kind of, wouldn't you just hoping that people will bring? What if it doesn't happen? Because economic activities sometimes are dynamic.
What's going on in Lagos now? Did you beg Lagos to go and establish finally in that place? A lot of people are working in Lagos, they live in Ibadan. A lot of Northerners are also in Lagos.
What kind of local economy do you hope to inspire?
The first thing, my brother, is commerce. Keep everybody busy.
With what?
With that asset that God endowed us with in that Riverine. Maybe we have not, maybe because we are not from Riverine. In the Riverine area, there is this popular saying, when you are in the Riverine area, you don't suffer. Ondo State Riverine is the only place where our people are suffering. No road, no light, no water to drink. No access road, no hospital, nothing whatsoever.
So you declare a state of emergency in that region?
Massive infrastructure. And we have the money. We have also PDP is there. We will collaborate with NDDC and federal government. If we are not in that place, that will not be reason for them to even say this is like just Ondo. We have the oil here. So we must be able to let people feel the impact of whatever they're producing.
If you do not get the mandate of the people, what would you do?
This next election, the people will decide they want the best for themselves. They only vote for me. They know the stuff I'm made of. The story has changed in Ondo State. It's not because I'm talking, because I'm contesting the election.
You think you are better than Lucky Aiyedatiwa?
Of course, I'm contesting. If I'm not better, would I say I want to contest the election?
What makes you better? What makes you think that you're better than Lucky Aiyedatiwa?
I have a clear vision of how to develop SLD, like SLD, Ondo State at large. So I have the clear vision, and I'm sure the people also know that this guy has what it takes. So they are listening to me now. Some of them are pained that, why can't this guy? Some of them will only play, let's just allow him to be governor. But of course, it must go through a process, and I'm very sure they will really vote for me.
Agboola Ajayi is a PDP governorship candidate in Ondo State, and I wish you the very best. This is not going to be the first, and this is not going to be the last, because the elections are coming, and the campaigns are going to be here too. Thank you so much, indeed, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Sean.
May the best man win for the interest of the people of Ondo State. We'll take another break, everyone. But when we return, it's going to be, what will President Bola Tinubu do? Will he be able to effect an electoral reform for the interest of the Nigerian people? Samson Itodo will be joining me. He's a lawyer, rights activist, and the executive director of Yaga Africa. They brought out a report. What does the report say? It's mind-boggling. We'll be finding out after now. Join us again. This is a case where we talk about some very uncomfortable reports coming out about Nigeria's election. Well, a leading Nigerian civil society organization, Yaga Africa, has been reviewing the outcome of the 2023 general election. Yeah, it's over a year now that we've known the outcome of the election, but what are the lessons for future polls in this country? At a round table yesterday in Abuja, the group presented a document which is titled the Electoral Trust, Nigeria's electoral process 1 year after the 2023 general election. It highlights the failures and the lessons of the process. I'm being joined by the promoter of the report and the executive director of Yaga Africa, Mr. Samson Itodo. He's a lawyer and a rights activist. Thank you so much, indeed, for your time tonight.
Always a delight. Good evening, Nigerians.
Wow. 1 year after, it looks like yesterday,
yes.
Where a lot of things failed, a lot of disappointments, some movement in the positive direction.
And some surprises.
Some surprises. I mean, for some of us who are watching and analyzing things, we do know that it is not all negatives for that election, but a lot of lessons. But in your report, a year after, what do you think was so significant that you found out?
Well, there are about 7 trends that we found. The first one is that the trust in the electoral process is declining, and that the off-cycle elections, the Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo elections, and the by-elections, were a missed opportunity to rebuild public trust in the electoral process. Because in those elections, we saw cases like pre-filled result sheets. We saw padding of turnout figures. We also saw violence and hijack of election materials and also attacks on personnel. And so politicians went on rampage and made it difficult, for the Electoral Commission to conduct elections. The second major trend was that after 1 year, from the general elections, the president is yet to articulate, an electoral reform agenda. And that is concerning because it is uncertain, and his stance on electoral reform, is unknown. And we've called, on the president to articulate an electoral reform agenda that complements what the National Assembly is doing, because the National Assembly have been providing leadership, on reforms. But it isn't just, electoral reforms isn't just a business of the National Assembly. The executive does have a role, because when the National Assembly concludes its work, it does require presidential assent. So we hope that the president will, articulate an agenda. There's also the issue of obstruction of justice. And we've seen cases where litigants, petitioners, or even respondents have encountered challenges in accessing election materials that the law provides that they have a right to those materials. So how do you litigate? How do you ventilate, an electoral dispute or prove your case if you don't have access to the materials? Look at what happened in Kogi, where thugs, barricaded INEC offices, made it difficult, for lawyers representing candidates and political parties in the elections, to access those materials. These are some of, the trends, issues around turnout. Turnout has been abysmally low, and it should be concerning, to Nigerians that on a consistent basis, turnout is so poor. The lowest in the by-election was 8.2%.
Samson, let's give some perspectives. And I'd like my producer to follow us in this space that we're going to go through, because there are some facts that we need to talk through. And page by page, we will be able to go through. And like Samson also to speak to these as quickly as we can. I want us to touch so that Nigerians can be able to get perspectives on the essence of an electoral reform in this country. If you're talking about justice sector reforms, we also need to be talking about electoral reforms, because that's the only way we can guarantee a sustained change of government and elections, of course. So first and foremost, let's look at a quick fact on this election. The 2023 election, as identified, 7th in the consecutive general elections, 7th in the round of election that we have seen since 1999. There was a new electoral law which now regulates the election, which was passed before the election, which is the 2022 Electoral Act. It was one of the most meticulously planned elections since 1999. There was a budget of 355.2 billion. 313 billion was released. There's an outstanding of 41 billion. Something.
Yeah, in fact, just to focus on the last part, and when it comes to the elections budget, we can clearly see that INEC is yet to receive all the funding that it requires for the elections. But one of the concerns that Nigerians have also expressed is the cost of elections. And so when you see that about 313 billion was released, ask yourself, how many percentage of that money was used to print over 500 million sheets of paper, which was used as ballot papers and result sheets? And you have a case where only 27% of people turned up for the elections. So we have millions, hundreds of millions that have gone to waste just because people didn't show up, at the last election. Or some people showed up, but due to voter suppression, they were prevented to cast their vote. So there's a lot of waste. But if you look at the fact that the election was the most meticulously planned election since 1999. There was advance, notice that was provided for planning. You had a new electoral law. So if you, in terms of planning, this election...
You would think that this should be the best election. Interesting, that is the 7th consecutive general elections. The first one since 1999 saw an Olusegun Obasanjo become president from the Southwest. It's a coincidence also that you have, and the 7th election, you have Bola Tinubu from the Southwest become governor. Well, this figure sometimes people say are significant.
It's just geopolitics.
All right, interesting. So, I mean, I'm just pointing it out. So let's flip the page and look at the off-cycle election. So we had Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa State. They followed just a few months after the general elections. But did we see any significance of, did it rub off the general election? Did it rub off on all these 3 off-cycle elections?
I think in the aspect of turnout, it did run off. Also about the trust levels in the elections. And by the time we came to November last year, and people already checked out, people didn't have trust in the electoral process. And so that also impacted on the level of turnout, but also how people engage. But on the part of, politicians, we saw, new tactics employed, by politicians to undermine the credibility of the process, especially in places like Kogi, where you saw pre-filled result sheets. How can you have an election before voting, accreditation and voting commenced? Result sheets were already completed and votes allocated to candidates. And you also saw what actually happened, and this was widespread, in Kogi Central Senatorial District. But you also look at what happened in Bayelsa, where INEC officials were abducted, where there was hijack of materials, and in some cases, thugs made it so difficult, for INEC to conduct elections. But if you go to the by-elections, if we pivot into that, if you
look, we had 9 states in those elections, 2 senatorial districts, 4 federal constituencies, and 3 state constituencies. These were the by-elections.
These were the by-elections in February.
Elections.
Yes, from the for by-elections you had 9 of them in 9 states, and then for a run you had 35 constituencies. Wow. One recurring decimal, in this election was unchecked electoral misconduct. You could see what happened in Kunchi local government of Kano, where a political party mobilized hundreds of thugs to the polling unit, hijacked the materials and the INEC officials, and they were now conducting the election themselves. So you had elections conducted by thugs. But you saw INEC responded by cancelling, and suspending election in places like Plateau, in Enugu, in Ebonyi, in Enugu, in Akwa Ibom, and in Kano, due to these levels of brigandage and political thuggery. And this is coming against the background that since the 2023 elections, the number of convictions that have been secured for individuals that undermine the process, individuals who appropriated violence to compromise the elections, have been very, very, very small. And that is disturbing.
Not only the by-election, they are rerun election, but we need to let our viewers know also that it's not for joke that by-elections and rerun elections are conducted. It's because when the general elections or the ordinary elections are not properly conducted, or there are problems in the election, that is when this happens.
This rerun, because
so
for
you have the magnitude of all of these elections happening.
They are court-ordered elections, but for by-elections, it was a result of resignation or death of people who previously won the elections in February and March last year.
So you look at the outcome of those rerun elections, and you see the yellow all over the map, which shows the rerun elections, And of course, one thing that comes to mind is the wastage that we see. If you know that you have some ambitions, why put yourself out for an election when you know you want to be a minister or you want to be something else? And then you allow the nation to spend, because people need to realize that it's the hard-earned taxpayers' money that is being spent to conduct these elections. But let's look at the outcome of the by-election, something. And we see at the Senate, House of Reps, State Assembly, and what does this picture tell us?
Yeah, so one of the consistent trend, so in this field of elections and also public policy, if something happens once, we consider it an accident. If it happens twice, we consider it a trend. If it happens 3 times, then it's substantive proof of a particular social phenomenon. And in this particular case, what we saw in the general elections, where we had the most diverse legislature, so about 7 to 8 parties won seats in the National Assembly, is what was replicated also in the by-elections. So you can clearly see that you had, I think 7 political parties. 7 political parties.
Predominantly.
Yeah, at least won some seats in the state houses of assembly elections. So that trend is actually consistent with what we saw, in the general elections.
All right, if you look at the voter turnout, this is one thing that is concerning and worrying also. And you see in the staggered elections in Kogi, 40%, in Imo, 29%, Bayelsa, 28%, in Lagos, 8.2%, which is the lowest turnout. This was the election which saw the replacement of Fenba Jabiamila, who became the chief of staff. And you see the highest turnout in that off-cycle at 33%. So what does this tell us about the enthusiasm of voters?
I think that there are 3 things here. First, there is need, for democracy to deliver. If you're going to repose public trust, and confidence in the electoral process, that when people are elected, they should take decisions that solve the problems that people actually voted them into office to solve. Secondly, it's about trust in the electoral process. And that's why, this report released by YAGA Africa, we asked the question, has electoral trust been restored? If people don't trust that their votes will count, there's no way they are going to show up at elections. If people don't trust that those who are managing that election will do so with the highest sense of integrity and responsibility, they're not going to show up at elections. These are the fundamental issues because trust is at the heart of driving turnout for elections.
So let's quickly, I like also touch on what is an also worrying scenario, because I'm not sure we've seen this kind of scenario played out since 2011, where we saw a lot of election disputes going into the courts. We saw 3,102 election disputes, 1,893 pre-election matters on party primaries and non-qualification and intra-party conflict, which also tells us that political party administration in this country is poor. And we saw 1,209 election petitions, 5 presidential, 83 governorship, 143 senatorial, 417 House of Reps, and 557 state constituencies. When you see a lot of disputes, it tells you something about the conduct of the election.
Yeah, not just the conduct of the election, but it also tells you about the character of the political parties and political class. And I think it's important that this point about the fate and the health of our political parties and our political culture is one that requires a national conversation. That you cannot have political parties that do not respect their own constitution and their rules. Just look at the amount of pre-election disputes in the elections, where you see it was as a result of what? Unlawful substitution of candidates, defective party primaries, or even intra-party rivalry.
Failure of the political parties. And in fact, I warned here, you remember something, yes. I was warning, I said, this 2022 Electoral Act, these political parties need to sit down with lawyers to understand, but they did not. And I pointed out some of those sections, and these are sections that were debated in the courtroom. I look like a prophet. I hate to be one, but now it has happened that these political parties are falling, they fell into the trap because they fail to understand the intricacies and the trap and the gaps in the electoral laws.
Absolutely, and when it's important that, we recognize that one of the biggest threats, to the credibility of our electoral process is really our political parties and our politicians. That there is need for political parties to not just undertake reforms, but uphold the cardinal principles of democracy. You cannot seek political power or seek power through a democratic process when you don't have regard, for the tenets of democracy.
Unfortunately, Samson, we don't have political parties when there are no elections. They all go to sleep and they are very idle. People have forgotten there are very 4 legs to our democracy. A ruling government, an opposition party, a functional civil society, and an unbiased and independent media. people forget that the running of all of these entities are very crucial.
But you forgot the judiciary as well.
The judiciary, well, it's part of government, absolutely. But look, Samson, let's run through these 2 or 3 slides, which are very important because these are the lessons. We have the education of the election dispute and the summary of the fact that we have petitions that are withdrawn, petitions rejected, and the ones that lack merit. Yeah. And 102 petitions were successful. And you are calling for 2 things. These are particularly very important. Legislative actions on the electoral reforms. Yeah. You're asking for electoral reform bills, citizen town halls and retreats, Joint National Assembly Committee on Electoral Reform, Joint National Assembly Technical Committee on Electoral Reform. And you also are talking about prosecution of electoral offenses. And largely, you are asking the president to do something, the post-2023 general election trends. What are your final words on some of these issues?
I think the president has a critical role. He celebrates 1 year in office. And I think as part of what he should prioritize, is to tell the nation his stance on electoral reforms and the agenda that he has, because it would inspire public trust and confidence. That advancing and articulating an electoral reform agenda does not in any way delegitimize the process that brought you into office. Instead, it actually inspires confidence, and it shows that as a president, you have the interest of our electoral democracy at heart, because there are some challenges. And the National Assembly and the 2 committees in the National Assembly, you must give it to them in the citizens' approach that they've adopted in passing the legal framework. But I think to the judiciary, that our courts and our judiciary need to undertake an internal audit of the role that the judiciary played, and interrogate this whole conflicting judgments that we saw in the course of this entire process.
So the judiciary has its role, the executive has its role, and the National Assembly also has its role. Absolutely. And we need to fix it. And that engagement has to happen now, because if you are going to repair, fix, and reform the electoral law, we need to do it way ahead. And it has to start
because we don't have time.
Thank you for your job at Yiaga Africa, because it's opened everybody's eyes on what we need to do to achieving a better election. Thank you so much indeed. Congratulations to you and your team at Yiaga Africa.
Thank you very much.
But that's how we end the show tonight. Many thanks everyone for watching. It's May Day tomorrow, Labor Day. It's bank holiday, but we are not having holiday. I have a special for you tomorrow. Stick around, everyone, and keep your dial here on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimale. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. God bless Nigeria.